Perfect. Welcome everyone for this session on evolution of consciousness, Eastern Indian perspective. We put more the Eastern perspective, and I was making it as like I'm know much more about the Indian perspective. So we'll go more towards that perspective. I think at some point you were not totally wrong when you were saying a lot of things started there. So a lot of things which we are going to talk about are from ancient wisdom text coming from around 1500 BCE. So we are talking about 3000 to 4000 years ago. And some of the things are still very relevant, as we'll see around that. You can ask questions anytime in the presentation, whatever you feel like there, and we can also make it interactive. I also have put some time at the end for the question and answers. So let's start. Before that, how many of you are a little bit familiar with Indian tradition? I know Vishwa, you are taking some courses on that, but how many of you are familiar with Indian wisdom traditions? A little bit. Okay. So today we are going to go really deep. So some of the words which you will see, it might be new for you. I try to make it as easy as possible, but it's going to be deep. And other thing which I want to say is, when we talk about Eastern philosophy, of course it's different than Western philosophy, but another point of difference is religion. In the Western philosophy, we have the Russian Enlightenment movement, and also Socrates was pre-Christianity. So a lot of thought process has been created which was not linked to religion. It was independent of religion. However, when we go to the Eastern philosophies, either with the Indian philosophy, Taoist philosophy, Buddhist philosophy, Confucius philosophy, they are much more intertwined there. So the God, divine, all are inherent part of the philosophical systems there. So a lot of things will be crossing those boundaries, which that's the way we do Indian wisdom traditions or Eastern philosophies. So let's go back. Let's start with the foundation of Indian wisdom traditions. I don't use the word Hinduism because I also don't know what it means, because Indian traditions are just so diverse and they are based on the principle of paradoxes. Somebody comes up with something and somebody completely opposite thing, and then completely opposite. And then anyone can take any part which resonates, and that's Hinduism there. So for me, what is Hinduism? I just don't understand that. And I also include Buddhism, Jainism as part of Indian wisdom traditions there. So that's where they started. So we started with Vedas and Vedantas. So Indian Vedas are ancient texts written around 1500 BCE by Indian rishis. And there are four major Vedas: Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sam Veda, and Atharva Veda. Now, what was happening was rishis, we don't know who wrote them actually. We call it the Angirasa rishis, but it also means, it's like the essence of our being, the word. So we don't know whether they have taken some word and make it like a rishi, or there was one rishi, or there was a group of rishis. Rishis are sages, basically, like in the title slide, who just go into the deep meditative states and work through those documents. The four one are Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sama Veda, Atharva Veda. Rig Veda is one of the oldest one and the most original one, where nothing is being repeated. If we talk about Sama Veda, which is how do we sing those mantras or those texts, and it has some own hymns. Yajur Veda is mainly about how do we perform those rituals. And Atharva Veda is the later text, and it is also esoteric in nature. So there were some magic spells and all that in that text. We will be working mainly towards the Rig Veda because that's the most original and that has the text there. Vedanta come later on, somewhere around, we say around 800 to 500 BC. Some people say it's still going on right now, so we can't put any dating on that. but most of the experts acknowledge this dating. Vedanta is really Veda Anta. Anta means end, which is the end of Vedas. There was a separate text which was later inserted at the end of the Vedas. And these texts started as Upanishads. Upanishad literally means sitting next to. Upanishad. Nishad is sitting, sitting next to. And that was the time of almost like a disciple model which came there. So there's a teacher and there's a disciple who's sitting next to. And they were telling about those texts, but the transmission was not only happening through the written language, but also through the oral traditions there, and also the energetic transmission between the guru and the disciple. And those things are still prevalent in India. We call it guru models there. So there is some beauty in it, there's some darkness in it there. And at the same point, at that time also there was a beauty in it, there was a darkness in it. Vedas was a critical, Upanishads and Vedantas were the critical response of the Vedas. It's almost very, very much linked to the Catholic Protestant Revolution, which happened. So in the Vedas, which were more ritualistic texts, there were the priests who were performing the rituals there. But people were not understanding those texts, what was happening. And then there was a movement happened, people went to the forest, and then the system started where somebody is giving the knowledge behind the text. There. So that's why we say Vedas are traditionally seen as ritualistic text, though this has been challenged, and one of few people just says it's not ritualistic. I also believe that they are not purely ritualistic, they are more psychological, but normal people think it's more ritualistic text. Vedanta provides the philosophical underpinnings of the Indian thought. So Vedantas were the real philosophical thinking behind, and actually, as I said, the critical response, there were statements in some of the Upanishads, like Chandogya Upanishad, there was a statement like, oh, you are chanting Om, any dog can chant Om, around that. So we had the chanting session yesterday, so we did the Vedic chanting. So it's also, the critical response to that is, oh, you can chant, but if you don't understand the meaning of things, what's the purpose of that? There. We need to understand that. So that's how they keep on intertwining, but together with Vedas and Vedantas, they created the entire philosophical thinking of Indian wisdom traditions. And later on, all other texts keep on taking things from them here and there and putting it together and creating their own text. So Gita came later on, Yoga came later on, Puranas came later on. These type of things keep on developing. Other thing which I want to mention, they are Shruti text. Now this is very important to hear. So in Indian text system, there are two types of scriptures. We call it Shruti and Smriti. Shruti means hearing. What does it mean hearing is nobody's mind has created those texts. So James, we talked about last time in your thing is how we can have third person think as a first person experience. That's what these rishis were doing. They were going into the deep meditative states where they let go of their own personality, own thought process, so deep. And then they were hearing those texts. So who created? It's not their mind. It's they heard those texts from the cosmic vibrations. And then they wrote it down. That's why we don't know who wrote it, because it's not a human written text in that way. Which is different than the other model, which we call it Smriti, which is a memory text. In the Smriti text, it's more about the stories which have been told and repeated, and then it keep on passing across the generation, but somebody created the story. And and significance, as I say, foundation of Indian philosophical and cosmological thought process. So they have the entire metaphysics in these documents. And as we go deeper in there, we can find they're multi-layered. And the metaphysics, you don't find a statement as in the Western thought process there where you have to use your mind in it. The metaphysics is in part of the stories, which is like there was a goddess and the gods and there's the cosmic beings which come together and fight with each other there. But these stories are the metaphysics of the thought process. Rituals are also part of the metaphysics there. How do we do things? They're clear. Some of the texts have a clear wisdom in it, and stories.
When you speak of the stories, you also mean the Mahabharata?
No, Mahabharata is a very, very late text.
Very late.
Mahabharata, we say, is Mahabharata or Ramayana are the two big epics of Indian thought process. They're even after Upanishads. We say, could be around 2nd, 3rd, 4th century BC. There. So, but those are the stories. They are more smriti text.
Very much story, right?
Memory text. And here these are the stories which have been downloaded, basically.
Oh.
These are the heard stories there. We will be discussing some of the stories today. There. That's how we do philosophy, Indian philosophy. Yeah. Now here a little bit more philosophical. Indian texts are really pantheistic. Now what does that mean? And that's where the philosophy and the religion come together. So there are 3 types when we talk about religions. There are 3 types we divide into broadly. One is, we call it pantheism. Pantheism is the belief that God and universe is identical. There. So that everything is divine in nature. There. So Spinoza's philosophy is pantheistic text. Sorry. Everything is divine in nature. On the contrary, there's another one called theism, a belief that there's a personal God who is transcendent, who is sitting above there and watching and intervenes at the right moment, and you can pray to that. That's the foundation of Abrahamic traditions, basically Judaism, Christianity, Islam. So there's one God above. Pantheism is a combination of that. That the God is both immanent here in the universe, and at the same time, the God is transcendent. So the God is present here and the God is present above. So we can say it includes and transcends universe. So Indian wisdom traditions mainly follow pantheistic thing. So most of the traditions have the same thing, is the God is here, there's some divine power which we are having in the universe, and there's a divine power outside the universe. There. Whiteheads, James and I had a lot of discussion on Whiteheads. Whitehead, who's a Western philosopher, his process philosophy is also part of it. We'll cover that as part of the consciousness studies session a little bit. Thoughts?
I hear from Sadhguru that he says that the God even came 9 times to India.
Yeah.
Have you heard of this?
So and that's the stories part of it there. And so for me, all of these stories are valid. Yeah. And at the same time, there could be multiple stories around that. And that's the Indian thought process for me. We don't say, okay, how that story relates to that story. And how can we say it's 9 but it's not 13 or 33 or 33,000 there. So yeah.
There are some stories like that.
There are a lot of stories are like, it could be, I don't want to go there, but this could be the Vishnu's avatar story, which is, we say Vishnu has 9 reincarnations already and the 10th one is already coming there. So that's the most story. But Vishnu is just one God. Vishnu was also mentioned in Vedas as the, today we are in Vedas. Vishnu was mentioned in Vedas as the divine, as the ever-penetrating eye, which is seeing everything. But later on, from an eye, it became a god. And then the god, it became different avatars. So these different stories keep on manifesting from there. Shiva was almost not present in these Vedas and Upanishads. In one Upanishad, he was mentioned. So they are all, we call it later, these gods are later inventions. Yeah. Any other thought here? So now, what is consciousness as per Indian tradition? We're talking about this consciousness studies. What is consciousness? So there are many ways we can cut it. I decided to cut it from an Upanishad thought process of Brahman and Atman. What is Brahman and Atman? And know about Brahman and Atman? Yeah. So Brahman, this is the thought. Brahman is a universal consciousness. So when we are talking that there's a God immanent in the universe, there's a universal consciousness. It is formless, supreme, unchanging, infinite, immanent, and at the same time transcendent, that forms the foundation of everything in the universe. So this Brahmanic consciousness is present in everything, which means everything. So here we are not even discussing whether consciousness is in the mind or in the heart or in the body. No, it's everything is conscious. Yeah. Now, if everything is conscious, then why don't we connect to that? Everything which is conscious. How do we not know that? So we say there is a wailing. Wailing has happened. A wailing of Maya. Maya is a word which is used in one of the Upanishads. It was used only once, but it was later taken on by Shankara later on in a lot of thought process. Maya is one which creates, some people say it's illusions. I also subscribe to Sri Aurobindo thought process. It's not only illusion. Maya creates the imaging. It's a complete system where there's a Brahmanic reality of everything. There's a Maya who's an illusion, which is we know something but we don't know everything. It's self-forgetting. Then we have these illusions and images of the higher world within us. And then it became Atman. Atman is the individual consciousness which is present in each one of us. It is true, it's eternal, it's essence of a person which is distinct from body, mind, ego here. If you have to use the word soul, you can use that word soul here. And we talk a lot about self-realization. This Paramahansa Yogananda had this self-realization, fellowship, a lot of Indian thought processes, realize yourself. When they talk about that, it is realization is that Atman is same as Brahman. So what you feel inside you is same as what is there, ever present in the universe. Yes?
How did you know?
Exactly.
So would Maya be an equivalent of headsets from some of the existing thinking, this notion of the experience in the universe would kind of like a headset that creates some form of illusion and allows us to look into reality? Is that similar?
What's the word you use? Headset?
Headsets, yeah.
Headset. Yeah, it could be. It could be virtual reality. In that way, the creator of the virtual reality.
And what is, how is it described? Can you give a little bit more?
Maya. So Maya is actually, in the Vedanta, it's actually mentioned only once in one of the texts. I don't remember the text right now. But they said that, I need to see, but I think the question was exactly, why don't we know, or how do we know around this? They said because it's a play of Maya around that. There is an instrument, there's an ordering technique the Maya has done where we forget.
So it's kind of referred to as is it a thing, an entity that creates this, or is it?
Yeah, it could be an entity, it could be an order, it could be an architect. There, it's order of the universe in which that order is present. Science is also decoding those laws of the universe. So, in that way, yes. But some people use it as an entity also. Maya is also a very common Indian name in that way. Yes. We'll come to this question: is how do we know
Yeah.
as we go ahead
Okay.
in the presentation?
Yes.
Any other? So, let's go to the cosmology. It's like these stories, which was happening. So, this is a story in the Rig Veda. So, Rig Veda, Indian tradition, is a very goddess-based tradition. Even though we have a lot of gods like Shiva, Vishnu there, but it's at the core of it, it's a goddess tradition there. And the story came is Aditi and her 8 sons and son. It's same in that way. She had 8 sons, and each son was a son. We call it Aditya. Aditya is son. Aditi is divisible, is similar, and Aditi is something which cannot be divided. There. And solar sons she had. So the story goes like that. The primordial goddess Aditi, she gave birth to 8 sons. The 7 of those sons came from her head. It's almost like the story in Greek tradition where Athena is born out of Zeus' head. So there's equivalence there, and if it's scholars also say there might be the same people writing it, so we don't know yet. So the 7 sons came out of her head, and they become the higher ideas of the universe, like the power of ideas in Platonic thought process there. So the sons and world is the big sons, Mitra, which is love, Varuna, which is vastness, Aryaman, power, Bhaga, bliss. And here we talk about both type of bliss. It's the active bliss of creativity and the passive bliss of receptivity, just in that blissful state. Anshu, vitality. Indra is a courage, and it's also linked to power, but it's like moving to the next level, always. And Dhatri is sustainer. Dhatri is a word which is coming from the word dhi, which in Sanskrit, which also means earth. So the Hindi word for earth is also dharti. So Dhatri is sustainer. Dhi is actually the word, Sanskrit word literally means the holder, something which hold. And that's why we say earth is a holder for everything. So that's the word dharti is coming there. And Dhitri is, they say like there's another sun or there, which is the higher version of earth. So earth in its perfect form is already existing. And then came the 8th sun. But the 8th sun came from the bottom and fell. And it's called Martanda. Martanda is literally Marta Anda, which is dead egg. And this dead egg is our earth. So Martanda, dead egg, is also named for our earth in the system. Interesting. So Aditi and her sons. So this is a one story which determined the cosmology. Now if you look into the cosmology, there's a clear separation from the top and there's a bottom. So there's a division. Something which is pure, something which is divine there. But from something which is divine is something which is born, which is not pure yet, which is dead. But it has the same potential of becoming. There's another story, which is one of the most famous stories of Rig Veda, and I'll also tell you why. It's in the 10th sutta we call it the sacrifice of the Purusha. It's a Purusha sutta. So in that story, Purusha is the ultimate cosmic being. Now, this Purusha, the word Purusha, later on some traditions like Sankhya Yoga and all, they don't use the word Brahman, but they use the word Purusha. Purusha is similar, it's the ultimate consciousness, the universal consciousness. And the Purusha was the ultimate divine being, the universal consciousness. There. So here they just put it in a form of anthropomorphic form of a human. All-compassing being with 1,000 heads, eyes and feet, symbolizing that Purusha pervades everything in the universe. Now, when Purusha pervades everything in the universe, then nothing needs to be done. There. But then starts the drama. And the drama is called the sacrifice of the Purusha. And that's what is a Purusha, to know themselves, needs to sacrifice themselves in different parts so that all parts can come together again. And that's the entire drama in the Indian wisdom traditions of the universe, of the metaphysics. So Purusha decide to sacrifice himself. They use the more masculine gender here. And there's a reason which we talk later. It's a cosmic sacrifice. The gods perform a sacrifice with Purusha as a sacrificial being. So they sacrifice the entire consciousness. And the gods were also part of that consciousness. So that's always the paradoxical systems. It's all fractal model. And from this act of divine sacrifice, the entire universe was created. That was the Big Bang here in Indian system. So the Big Bang was developed in 18th, 19th century? Yeah? And so the Big Bang here is in 1500 BCE. There. And the different parts of Purusha's body became various elements of the cosmos. And now that's why it's the most important, because Indian caste tradition system is also coming from this sutta, these hymns. So what happens when the Purusha decide to sacrifice himself? His mouth became Brahmins in terms of people, the priest. His arms become Kshatriyas for the warrior. His thighs become Vaishyas, merchants and agriculturists, and his feet became the Shudras, the laborers. And the people used this text to divide the people into different castes where they were born. So there's also a negative side of that system. And this was not the only thing. With this, creation of the universe happened. From Purusha's body came the sun, moon, sky, earth, animal, plants, and elements in the universe. The sacrifice symbolizes that creation is not an arbitrary act, but a sacred process, where everything is interconnected. Because if everything came from the universal divine power, then everything is connected. And that's how the Brahman get into different shapes, into eminence. Thoughts?
When you said he sacrificed himself and it was like an explosion, this was divided into
Different
all
things.
the different.
So it's like
It reminded me of the story in the Bible where Adam and Eve were pushed out of the paradise. And that the goal of humanity is also to come back. Is that...
So there are some parallels, but not to that story. So let's say, when we're talking about this dead egg coming there, there's always something, the fall has happened, from Aditi's bottom, the egg fell, and there's something is not right there, because everything is just getting born from head. So there is that connotation in the story of Aditi, of the fall. Here in this case, literally the fall, which happened there. in this story, in the Purusha here, it's more about this concept of sacrifice, which is so much part of Indian wisdom traditions, that to even create anything, the most divine being has to sacrifice themselves. So everything is happening because of sacrifice. Sacrifice took a central position in it. And it's almost like then in that case the Big Bang happened. And the question always comes is like, why? Why do you sacrifice yourself? And they say, yeah, because then we can know, the divine can know themselves much better by dividing themselves into parts. So in that case, everything is divine, good or bad, which is happening here. So now we start going into decoding these stories as what is meaning as a metaphysics. There. So there's a theory of involution which is coming. Let me explain that. So what is happening is here, in both the stories, there's a heliocentric realm and there's a geocentric realm. Heliocentric where the sun is the center and geocentric where the earth is the center. So heliocentric world, even though we came to know that sun as the center of the universe somewhere in the 16th, 17th century with Copernicus and Kepler and Galileo and all coming together here, the stories and the mythology of Indian system or Vedic system already have these two. The heliocentric, the sun is part of the entire thing from the very beginning. That is stable. But here they are not saying there's only one story. They say there are two stories, where other stories, the earth is at the center, and we'll go to these two stories. These are two different realms which exist, heliocentric and geocentric. What's happening in heliocentric? Helios is sun. Helios means sun, and geo means geography, earth. Heliocentric in Sanskrit we call it Upari Budhana, which is the upper layer. There's an eternal formless realm of constant day and light. So that's a realm where there's no darkness. It's just pure light. So all the sons of Aditi, the 7 sons of Aditi, are present there, giving the light. That's why they're called suns in that way. It's a transcendental solar world where Aditi's 7 sons reside in the form of fire ideas, and where the cosmic being resided before the sacrifice happened. So that's the upper realm. That's the transcendental realm of Brahman, the panentheistic perspective. And now this realm contains, you might have heard Satchit Ananda a lot in Indian texts. If you're in any Indian system, they always talk about Satchitananda, especially the transcendental meditation. When we talk about transcendental meditation, they're talking about how to go to the heliocentric realm, simply. There. Sat is the absolute existence, where nothing is present, but everything is present. Chit is a consciousness, absolute consciousness. And Ananta is absolute bliss. It's just about the delight of being. That's where a lot of Indian traditions also differ from Buddhist traditions. So in Buddhism, they say that suffering is a root cause there. The first noble cause is suffering in the world, and second noble cause, desire is the root cause of suffering. But there is suffering. Buddhism starts with suffering in the world. And that was Buddha's problem also, or the challenge for Buddha. Because in Indian tradition, everybody's talking about delight. Indian systems is really about bliss and the delight there. So like Satchitananda, let's go to that blissful states around that. And Buddha came, hold on, who's going to talk about suffering here? That's what I see. Yeah, so he took the same thing but from a geocentric realm, from other realm there. So Satchitananda, and that becomes the complete goal of connecting with the transcendent. That Brahman is Satchitananda. But in the geocentric realms, where the Buddha was also doing, Buddha was going this way. We call it geocentric realm. We call it Ahoratri. Ahoratri is day and night, basically. It is a realm. There's a changing realm of day and the night. And they say there's a night, which happens. And there's again the stories. Here is they say it's like, oh, there were the cows, and the word cow, go, is mean cow, but it also means light. That's why cow is a sacred animal in India. And the stories also come is like, oh, there was a devil and the demon came who just stole all the cows and took it into a cave. What happened then? It became night there. And then Indra, the courage, the warrior came and then used the power of storm and thunder and fight it with them and then released the cows. And then came the light. So there's a drama here in this story which keeps on happening. People fighting, doing things. There are gods and there are demons. The fight between good and evil is happening here. And it also has, they have a clear thing about the light and the knowledge. They said this is the realm of knowledge, the heliocentric realm. And this is the realm of ignorance, because there's a light. Because the dead egg, they have been cast away from the Garden of Eden. Something needs to go back to realize. That's why Purusha happened from here to here, which is Purusha is involution into it. But then the evolution happens so that it's going back. And that's the evolution of consciousness in Indian thought. How do we go back? Right? So this is what we're going to talk about, evolution of consciousness. What is happening? What's the drama? What's the story which is happening here? So if we see there's a heliocentric realm with Sat Chit Ananda. Yeah. Transcendental realm is out there. And that's where we want to go. But then what happened in the geocentric realm? Involution happened. So with the involution, what happened? There's an inconscient universe. There was nothing conscious, a dead egg, basically. Matanda. From there, what started happening is the first layer of consciousness emerged, which is matter. That's why we say the matter is itself a conscious peak. There. It's consolidated, but it's conscious in Indian system. That's why we have a lot of idols. You can go to the temples and there are idols. They're made of rocks and different things, and you can pray to them. This is a consciousness in the matter, which we have put with our own power of worship. So the first is matter. And then started the hard problem of consciousness, which Devil Chalmers put. From that matter came the next grade of life there. But everything was already involuted, so we moved to the next grade. From life, they also decide between life and the psyche. So life is more about, as the plants came, but the psyche is really the emotions started coming into the being. It's also in animals where there could be a motherly love, parental love, taking care of each other. That's what is psyche. So this was also there. It involuted before. From there, of course, we move more towards the human, the Homo sapiens. The mind came. Keep on emerging. So that we know, this is the evolution of consciousness there. But the story doesn't go finish here, because our aim is to go back to whatever we can go here. So they say, like, this is from Sri Aurobindo's work, and who was an Indian mystic and philosopher of late 19th, early 20th century, a scholar, and he said that we need to go back. How do we do that? And he read Nietzsche quite well, and he was also linked to that Nietzsche's thought of the man is a beast. Man is a rope between the beast and the Übermensch, superhuman. There. So the man is a human, is a work in progress. There. So we have not even there till the mind level. That's what we know, our rationalistic mind. So then what Sri Aurobindo did, he looked into the Indian text. He was a scholar, so Vedas and Vedic text, and also his own experiences there, and worked together with Mother. And they decided they worked on what are the higher realms, how high we can go. So the first level they come is, they said like, this is still, as humans, is in our own process. We can go from a mind, we can go to the higher mind. I'll say illumined mind, intuitive mind, and overmind. What is happening is, higher mind is more, from my perspective, connected back more to the higher ideals which we are having, how we use them, values, ethics, purpose, whatever it is. They become part of our daily decision-making processes. Whenever we talk about these things, we are taking our rationalistic mind to the next level. And there are some people who did it so well that, like Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, Desmond Tutu, that become part of their life. That was their thinking. So they were, in that way, they were really in that higher mind process. They were dealing with, they were working from. From higher mind, illumined mind. Illumined mind is more about when people have started having experiences. Here we start going more into a spiritual experience. There. When people have those experiences, at some point it's called spiritual emergencies. There. Or sometimes people call it, okay, let's take the person to psychotic mode. Yeah. But that's real, something else is coming from the heliocentric realm, and the person mind is opening. Our objective rationalistic mind cannot process that. But it's something else. It's again the next level. Illumined mind. Intuitive mind is when we start having really revelations in front of us. Then we know what's happening, we just know. There. And we can see much more than what's available to be seen. There. And that's where our intuition becomes so sharp that we are able to perceive some of the components of the higher realm. And that's where we move towards even higher as intuitive mind. And the next is the overmind. Overmind is an experience, we call it unity consciousness. Everything is just one. The Sri Aurobindo, he had this experience. He was a freedom fighter, fighting against British, and he was put in the jail in 1908 or 9. And he mentioned his experience when he was at jail. He got a visitation from Krishna consciousness, called divine as Krishna. That was his way to relate to it. And he said that everything became Krishna when he was in that stage. The jailer became Krishna, the jail became Krishna. He became Krishna. Krishna was outside, Krishna was inside. Everything was just one. And he was able to see it with his own rationalistic mind, being present still. Maybe not totally present, but he was having those strong experiences, but he was able to come back from that experience to narrate that and write about that. So that, we have this oneness universities and this, everything is one. This is basically the overmind state. When we are there, we can see that. We can feel. So these all, we say, they are within the realm of human experience there. Till mind, as humans, everybody we know, we can go up to the higher mind by our trainings, our knowing better, by discussions. Then we can have spiritual experiences. We can go towards the illumined mind, where we see something more, even though we cannot even totally process, but we know there is something more to what is being seen. Intuitive mind, where we can start knowing and perceiving it and putting words and direction to it, and new things get revealed to us. And our mind, when we completely go into that unity consciousness movements. Any thought before we even move higher? Any experiences anybody wants to share? Yes, it's being recorded, so be careful. Be careful for your own thing. I would love to hear those.
Is it the target or duty for the Indian people to reach that overmind place?
Yes and no. In Vishwa, you want to say something?
No, I mean, my question is, why are we being punished not being born in the heliocentric world and being born in the geocentric world? I mean, that's my question Buddha asked, why should I go through all the suffering? But
Exactly.
I think the reason why the people in heliocentric what put us here is to realize that something is more. Is to prove the fact again, God and consciousness is still there, and that you go beyond these steps of matter and mind to see the part, and then it's just reflected. They say that that's the top of the universal consciousness, and then what we feel is the reflected consciousness. We just get reflected. It's like a mirror. We just see it, and then that's it. So that's basically your question, right? I mean, why do we do that?
Yeah.
What is the purpose of life? I mean, you start answering, you start questioning yourself and try to find answers for it.
Yeah.
And this never ends. It's a never-ending process.
And also, thank you very much. And your question is also Indian systems. So Indian system is also very prevalent, like that thing, like something which we call it spiritual emergencies more into the West. A lot of things is just common practices in India. And if somebody is going through some experiences, there are traditional ways to just honor that and bring it together. And that's why we still have so many guru system which is prevailing, because somebody say, oh, somebody would have already gone into that level, that state. Let's go and learn from them what we can do there. So it's because the culture supports it. It's much easier to talk around that there. If I have a strong dream which I remember, I still call my parents and tell them, and we just discuss the dream. So it's like a common family thing which we do. Or not even me, if some relative had a dream, then it become a shared dream of everyone there. Yeah. So it's a process which the culture supports in itself. So you had a lot of experience in Indian systems also. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I love it. For me, it's very nice that it is so. It's like, okay, this is a weird example, but it was very clear for me. Like when I was in India, everybody, and I was in an ashram as well, so everybody, they shared with me their wisdom, So everybody felt like a little bit like a grandmother. They have all this grandmother wisdom, from very practical to very higher wisdom, or higher. Like very, we cannot relate anymore. To drink hot water after food, it will help your digestion. To we are all one.
Yeah.
So, I like it. And definitely some of these experiences I was able to have in India or not in India. So it's very nice.
And we call it the Indian model, but I think it's a universal model. They never talk about India, at least the Indian way of being. However, why all of you are just sitting here on a Tuesday evening and we are discussing even that thing, which we cannot prove. It's also a type, there's a drive in our own being which helps us, which wants to know more and decode in our own forms and shapes there, and have our own experiences there.
According to James, maybe we are not sitting here.
No, never said.
You said.
A little you said.
So Sri Aurobindo didn't even stop there. His aim was not to go up to overmind. Overmind, he has these experiences, and he said, a lot of people have those experiences. So as humans, we can prepare for it, we need to work on it, but it's within all of our reach. There. He said, but what's in between here, between heliocentric and geocentric? There. And that became his life's work. There. How can we even go up? There. And what was what he said, and it's also part of our Vedic text system, is there's something called supermind. So it's not something like you with Nietzsche was going towards Übermensch there. It's something similar. He said this consciousness, at least at his time when he was writing, this consciousness is not present in the universe. So he said, I reached that level, how can I go further? But then he was not able to go further than that. And then he did a lot of work. Actually, he didn't leave the room for I think more than 20 years, I think 40 years. He didn't leave the same room there. So a lot of people say like, oh, you are just going into the realms of consciousness and you're never leaving your room. There. So he was working hard on that. He was always saying, I can't go further than this, I can't go further than it. But then he said, I can't go further because this consciousness has not yet arrived there in the human, in the geocentric. It's between geocentric and heliocentric. It's more operating within the heliocentric, it's more purple there. But this is a layer where we can go up to. And then his life's work was like, how can we go to that layer? In Vedic text, we call it Vijnana. So Jnana is knowledge. And anything which you put the suffix of prefix of V becomes special knowledge, Vijnana. It's ironically it's the same word for science. Vijnana. So how do we go to that level? So what he did it was actually he died in 1950, and he has a spiritual partner, a mother, and they worked together. And in 1956, after his death, mother had a spiritual experience, and she said that the supermind or supramental consciousness has come in the world from her experience. The mother was a French, French, Turkish, Egyptian lady, and she went to India, and both of them worked together on evolution of consciousness, basically, spent all their life, and she said that it has come through her body here. However, we haven't seen much impact of that. Yeah, I think it was more the case whether somebody has an subjective experience, whether it has come or not. We don't know yet. She was so powerful in that way. Anybody know Auroville? Auroville is one of the largest eco-villages or community in India, largest in the world. Around 3,000 people live there, and they created this community based on this entire unity consciousness principle. But in the unity consciousness they're not religious, not spiritual. In fact, they were hardworking people who just get together and say how we can live in harmony with one another and have more human consciousness, not based on cultures or creed. So 3,000 people live there, 1,500 are Indians and 1,500 are from all over the world. It's an experimental town. There was no taxes there, so Indian government also supported to create a town.
You say for clarification, I'm asking, in 1950s, a kind of consciousness came to the world, and a person confirmed that.
She confirmed that.
Okay,
She said that. 1956.
1956. Okay.
Yeah.
For me, it's interesting because, especially for artificial intelligence,
Mm.
1950s are almost the
That time.
beginning of the new era, because before that it was just a kind of thinking, but after that it's like materialized, and we started to see some real results, and that's why interesting.
James, you wanted to say something? Thank you. Yeah, and this is, so this one so this one I would still say is somebody's subjective experience. So I would leave it to that, you know.
So then she's claiming, and also Sri Aurobindo are claiming that before them, like the Buddha, all these spiritual masters, they were not there, they were in overmind.
So Buddha has a very, let's say, it's both good and bad in Indian things. So one of the things about Buddha, which actually Sri Aurobindo and other masters, spiritual masters have said, that he transcended many realms very fast. So they say Buddha was able to reach directly to the Satchitananda.
Yeah, he would even say that this is irrelevant, and he transcended that.
Exactly. So Buddha really there.
Mhm.
But they say like Buddha was more a deviation in the system where the things were in the process of evolution. So there's another theory. You mentioned the 9 gods, 9 times thing has come. There's a complete equivalent to this theory here. They say like there's a 9 avatars of Vishnu, and the first one was I think tortoise, and then the fish, and then the bear, and then the
this one.
human.
This
So-
is like the evolution of the human being.
It's
Or
linked to
like
the
of the
evolution
earth,
of the
yeah.
consciousness. So there's a consciousness is
Ah.
slowly evolving, and in that story, that a divine being came on earth and pushed the envelope one step further to go to the next level. But Buddha, sometimes Buddha is in some Indian traditions he's one of those 9. In some he's not one of those 9. Balarama or Buddha, they keep on shifting. But in Buddha they say like he completely went up, which is good. Energy has come up, but it was not a structured process, which has happened.
And he gave a very structured process though.
That's Buddhism in that way. How to go through that in that way. Yeah.
But how did it happen then?
Hmm?
How was this possible then for Buddha? I mean, because he was not like human as others?
Yeah, so in those stories they say that in those stories they consider Buddha as this word called avatar. The movie Avatar is coming, has taken up that word. And avatar is somebody from the heliocentric realm. And I'll also say what you say even beyond. I'll tell you what you meant by that, at least from my perspective. Somebody from the transcendental realm came in the human form on the earth. But when they came on the human form on the earth, they are bound to the human laws. There. So it's not their pure special power, but they have more powers than that. The Buddha, they say, was one of the avatars there who was able to do that. But some people, some groups don't believe in that story also, because if we believe in that story, then we say what Buddha did. Some people say what Buddha did, anybody can do.
Yeah,
You know.
definitely. That's what he's claiming as well.
So that's why in that case not the avatar model, because with the avatar models there is a special being who has come on the earth. Not everybody can be that being. So there's many different stories on that thing. But in this model they're more mainly saying there is like there. And also Satchitananda, there we say this is also Satchitananda is also a manifested form. So there's a form above Satchitananda which is not even manifested.
To me, it feels like all of this has to be present all the time. No, maybe it's not accessible to me or to other people. Maybe to other people it is. But it seems weird that Sri Aurobindo and the mother would claim like it hasn't come to the world, because like this is like it's anyways not going anywhere. It's consciousness. It's just something.
So
It's
some,
somewhere it should be accessible somehow.
yeah,
And the Buddha did. That's I don't know if they're denying this or.
yeah. Yes and no. So one thing is, a lot of people also say like, oh, what a hubris of somebody to claim,
Yeah.
that something is not there and we are going to bring it, which nobody can even see and feel and touch there, in that way. Yes, and that's what they lived. That's their subjective truth in that shape and form. I also agree with you that it should be present everywhere. However, they also say, at least also in Indian text, is there is a separation in that realm.
Mm.
Something needs to go beyond. A lot of people, and when you say 9 avatars, they say there's also 10th avatar which is coming. Kalki, which can push this even to the next level. There. So these are all stories in that way. But most of the stories say, that's why they say there are 10 avatars, and 9 has already happened, the last one is coming. This level is where people are saying. They say we can't go up to that level. In any case, human consciousness is not, it cannot be centered in the body, that level of consciousness.
It's just then you don't have a body anymore.
Yes. To this level, they say we can do it as humans are evolving. However, at some point we're talking about this level, but a lot of us are also here.
That's the collective consciousness.
That's right, yeah.
Because the whole society, community has to go together. I think, yeah.
So that's why we are saying, sometimes we have not even moved out of that. I would go, what is supramind? What is the supermind consciousness they are talking about? Is it supermind represent the highest level of consciousness that mediates between the absolute universal consciousness, Brahman, and the manifested universe? It plays a key role in the evolutionary process of consciousness. Supermind is truth consciousness, they say, which means one of the key features of supermind is we can really work with paradoxes and really don't think them as a paradox. That's the power where everything makes sense. There's a real unity in paradoxes. And for me, that's where how all the stories can have their own purpose and how they all can come together at the same time. State where knowledge and will are in perfect harmony, unlike the ignorance of human mind where dualities and contradictions exist. So we go beyond dualities and contradictions. Real unity in multiplicity. Supermind is a vast self-extension of the infinite which contains all possibilities within itself. It is an eternal reality of the infinite, of that which is always, which never loses self-possession or its power of conscious being. Where we are just conscious of the realities we are living in. So it's not that we can really, the process is also, what they say, the process is not only that, I'm start living super consciousness. They say the process involves 3 steps. Presence, just being present in here and now. Second is aspiration. Aspiration is I want to become better than what I am. I want to go towards the next level, consciousness. And the third is grace. You can aspire only to a particular point, and then the grace has to come and take it to the next level. Any thoughts? What I have to say? It's a lot.
Can you repeat that again? The end was grace, and there was aspiration.
Presence, aspiration, and grace.
Mm.
I find this interesting to hear your take on this, because for me it's very clear that aspiration, it's very important, that striving, it is very important, but at the same time, many times you hear, if you, it's called self-realization, so how can you, it's like nothing to do, basically. So there is a kind of a contradiction, and many times if you are connected with some Buddhist meditations, they say when you strive for it, when you want enlightenment, you will never get it. So there is this kind of conflict that I am seeing, and that I am also observing. So what is your take on that? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. Means, I do, yes I do, and I don't think they contradict each other in any case, in that way. Yesterday we had a session on Isha Upanishad. The one line of Isha Upanishad was, Ten Twak Ten Punjita, who let go gets everything. So, for me, even just sitting in the Buddhist meditation and trying to do whatever, it's an aspiration. The aspiration doesn't have to be defined intention or whatever. Just, I aspire to be a better person. And that's it, and then I'll take whatever comes.
And presence comes first. So
Presence
you're in the
comes
here
first.
and now, and you're not, oh, in the future I will be enlightened and then things will be fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you mean presence like a materialistic presence or a conscious presence? Because if we think if it is a materialistic presence, it means that we are coming back to the beginning.
Yeah.
Like, you know, in your steps,
Yeah.
matter is the first layer. And that's why we think, is this presence without physical existence, do you think is the kind of place, or I don't know how
I think the
Indian
yeah.
belief system recognize that presence?
Yeah. I would say what like Theo said is like, I'm present here right now. When I'm here, I'm doing it, I'm present with you, I'm present with you all. I'm not thinking about tomorrow, I'm not thinking about what I need to cook for dinner, or whether I should have dinner now, or what it is. Just fully present there. And
The question is, you are here because physically you are here, or mentally you not mentally, what?
consciousness.
consciously,
I would say if you
yeah.
have to choose, I would say consciousness.
Okay.
But for me, consciousness also includes the physicality. in
Maybe
that
the
way.
alignment of the three
Now
also.
I'm coming back to the previous point.
The-
If it is about, if we are talking about matter is not the problem, then energy will not the problem. And then if there is a way thinking without energy consuming, maybe that can move people to supermind or heliocentric. Because according to this picture, matter is very low level, and then materialistic requirements or physical requirements is not moving us to the another layer, and that's why, according to previous presentations, how science and other philosophies come together. That's why I'm just creating idea. Yeah.
No, it's a very, very important point, because a lot of time we spend a lot of time here. So one thing is, we are not saying that we need to get away with that. So other thing is, each layers we say includes and transcend, include and transcend, include and transcend. And Mother said is, if our supermind, our supramental consciousness come through, then it has to come through the matter again. There's a circle. So we need to be healthy. Things will happen in physicality, in the body. So everything at the end again come back with a circle. This is also a circle in that way. And it's not one-time process like. A spiral is a better way, sorry. It's a spiral in that way. But it always come back to matter. Always come back to matter.
Because it's the foundation.
That's the foundation, and so that's also like, it's not about leave everything. This is so Indian system, at least these ones, they just don't believe in that. They think body is equally important system, and that's why these systems also combine two different point of views of in 6th century, 6th century CE we have between Advaita Vedanta and Tantra. There, so Advaita Vedanta came through. So Advaita Vedanta is it's just text, and different people interpret the text differently. Shankara, he interpreted the text as pantheistic text. Just like everything is divine. It's just more is like less. Nothing matters. Just that matters. These experiences matter, and there's nothing about physicality. And again, the critical response to that came in Tantra. Tantra said, no. Let's have sex. Let's talk about the body. Let's talk about all they call it 5M, 5 M's, which like body, meat, alcohol. Let's go through that. Why to reject it? Let's completely overdo it, and then we say it doesn't make any sense. Then we transcend. There. So there's always these paradoxes there, but I personally think at some point they are not paradoxes, they are together. Each one of them it's part of it. On Buddha, I think what Sri Aurobindo said is Buddha told us the art of possibility. What is possible in the universe? So in his system, Buddha didn't push the envelope. He pushed the envelope further, not like another level for humans there, but it also shows us what is there. It's possible. And Buddhism is, as you said, for me it's also a very structured religion. It's a very structured and it's very detailed around this thing. We also don't know how much was Buddha and how much was later, which happened. After Ashoka in 3rd century CE become, I think 3rd century CE when he became Buddhist, then a lot of money flew into Buddhism. And then all the systems were created out of it. So we don't know these things there. So there's always question on everything, even on this. Yes.
Is there anything, so according to this it sounds like the purpose of evolution is to kind of get to this to the heliocentric realm. Is there anything about the kind of the scientific view of evolution in which the kind of maximizing fitness criteria is the driving force? Is there any parallelism between that, or just completely separate views?
So I think I divide into two questions. What is the purpose of evolution? The first and the second one, and we go to the physical. The purpose of evolution, here they talk more about that's the purpose. If you ask in these traditions, the purpose of evolution is bliss. It's pure bliss, the joy of absolute being. And if you're just in those states, then that's what we have to do. And just on that also they say that's a little bit different than in the Buddhist systems. In Buddhist system, this is the purpose is more nirvana. They just go to the moksha, nirvana. You just go out of the cycle. But they say this is samsara, cycle of suffering. There, here it's different. In this system, they say you grow yourself to a particular level. They call it jivatma. They are jivan mukti, which is in this world you have everything what you need and you live joyfully there. So that's the they say like, and that's why here in this system the matter is important, the body is important. There's nothing about going out but evolving oneself, and a lot of yogic traditions are using those systems there, that through yoga we can go into and get the divine consciousness in our own body and live better, not being out. The parallels with all these longevity movements and all these things, that's a great question around that.
Yeah, I mean more in the sense that kind of according to scientific evolution, life evolved, Big Bang and whatever, with very strong. So there's kind of always this. All creatures try to maximize fitness criteria, right? They try to survive
Okay.
and mate,
Knowledge.
right? And this is kind of the driving force for for evolution, right? That evolution's from like very unsophisticated beings to sophisticated beings.
Yeah. So there's the theory of the Darwin theory of survival of the fittest.
Right. Yes.
So here it's about how do we define fittest. There was another person studying with L who had a parallel theory at the time of Darwin. I'm forgetting his name. Lama, yeah. And then he proposed a theory which I think more aligned to this version, but it was not coming to the mainstream there. And his theory was more, but it's also how we see Darwinian theory, survival of the fittest. He used the word survival of the most adaptable, which is similar to the fittest, we could prove, but it's like the people who were going out, they were more adaptable to the environment, to the changes around that. And when they were more adaptable, they were going ahead. So it's not the competitive pressure of me versus you or I'm the fittest, which I think later been interpreted there. It's things are changing. So that's why I think when things are changing, how can we just let go and adapt to the new environment, and that's what makes us fittest. And then, so I personally I think Sri Aurobindo talk about the Lamarck theory also. He wrote a lot about materialism, and in that they also talk about that materialism is very important part of the process. If the scientific revolution would not have happened, we would not have taken one part of the thing and atom and try to decode it there and try to get all the progress there. But also we need to put that in a perspective that we reduce the universe to particular particles or waves, and we are doing it. It is one part of the story. It's not a strong story there. It's one part of the story. It's not totality.
How do you spell Lamarck?
I think Lamarck.
Yeah.
Philosopher Capra talked quite a lot the systems view of life. I think so. So it is linked in that way, but from a different lens. There.
I have a question for the Rig Veda. So I think Albert Hoffman, the guy who synthesized LSD later on, with other scholars, they looked at the Rig Veda, where this Soma god is revered and pops up everywhere, and it turns out it's a psychedelic substance. So kind of like, how much is this integrated into like Indian consciousness, culture, historical perspective? Because just like saying sort of the in Western philosophy that the Greeks had this psychedelic festival is like something we totally ignore and don't know about and don't talk about. So like, is this different in Indian culture, that it's like acknowledged that there was like this potential psychedelic influx, or not, or like?
Thank you. I'll put it in two ways, this question again. So one is Soma. So let's say we can't call it pure psychedelic also, and it's also similar to that. But I would like to go to the essence of it there, in the shape and form I can. So in the Rig Veda there are hymns to Soma. Soma is a god in itself. Another god was fire, Agni, and there are hymns to the fire. There, oh fire, they said this, oh Soma. Which means in the ritualistic processes, everything was God, which was helping them to take them towards the God. Yeah. So, in that case, Soma was a drink which they were drinking to go into the ritualistic space, but that was also a God they are taking with them when they are going into that part. Soma is also, yeah, and they say there is a strong potential that there was a psychoactive substance. They were going into that trance states, and that also helped them into letting go of their own first person personality and then look into the consciousness from the third person personality there. How much is integrated in Indian traditions in a very different shapes and forms, also again, like in the Shiva festivals, they drink this like we still drink on Holi, this psychedelic festival, and go into that state still, even in cities like Delhi and all, we call it bhang there. If you go into in Rishikesh, then a lot of people, they were just smoking marijuana and then going into those states, and it's okay in that way. It's also become a vehicle to go in that states there. However, these states can also be again go into the form of taking normal curd, and putting the sugar or something like that, or some tulsi leaves in it, and have it during, which also become a prasad. So it's there could be different shapes and forms in which we can activate that, but the rituals have some food or a drink component which is still very prevalent, and then we call it God, and we just connect to that and go into that. And that's why I also say we should not also take all the rituals on the same value they were existing 1500 BC, 3500